What's up, headband?
I can't hear anything through my headphones.
That's not good, man. You should probably turn that shit up.
There we go.
There we go. I should have turned it up. Yeah, that's hard, huh?
Sometimes.
Yep. You gotta turn those headphones up sometimes, man. That's how you hear it. You turn the volume up, and then you can hear stuff. Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta turn it up a little bit louder too.
I know. Technology's hard, man.
Fucking this last like 2 weeks.
I know. We've had so much trouble with the new equipment we've gotten, and it's funny. Like my clients will ask me about our podcast and how everything's going. They're like, "Yeah, it seems like you guys have issues every time you get something new. You know, we got the mixer, screwed that up. We got the new mixer, screwed that up. We have a new one coming, so there'll probably be another fuck up coming. We got the mics, we screw that up, and then we get the cameras, we screw that up too. So
Screw that one up like 2 or 3 times.
I know, but I feel like we're finally rolling now, so that's exciting. And you
I'd
got
like to
some
think.
hairs just sticking up back there over those headphones. That's funny. You gotta just take them off, slick that back. Yeah. Might want to just brush back a little bit.
I look beautiful now.
It doesn't look great, but you know, it's a morning. It's early morning. You're good.
It's not that early.
It's not. It really isn't that early.
It was early.
It was earlier, yeah, and then we took too long. So
That's okay.
that's pretty much what always happens.
No matter how much time we have, we always make it till it's like crunch time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they say, the time it takes to complete a task is the time you allot to it.
Yep.
It's like, you have a freaking assignment when you're in school and it's due in like 2 weeks and you wait until it's like, it's due at 11:59 one night and you start at like 7 p.m. that same night.
Yeah.
And you're just like, all right, let's race against the clock.
And you wonder why you're stressed out.
But what's funny is you just rise to the occasion and you figure it out and you make it work. And you're like, man, what if that was, 4 hours or 5 hours of really intensive work. I could have spread that out and done 30 minutes to an hour a day and it would have barely taken me any time and I would have been not stressed at all.
Yeah, but I like that feeling of stress. Mm-hmm. Like I tend to make situations way more stressful than they need to, just out of sheer I enjoy the feeling of being stressed. As weird as that sounds.
Well, I think there's good stress and there's bad stress. Like the good stress is kind of pushing you to work harder and get more things done. And also I think that stress, part of it comes from the fact that we care. And
Yes.
when you care about things, that's what gives your life meaning and you feel fulfilled and things like that. And so I feel like that kind of stress is good. The stress that's not good is your health is going downhill and you got some family issues and things like that. Like that stress sucks.
Right.
But I do think there's good stress, and whether it's professional stress or even just stress from personal goals, whatever the case, I think those things can be super beneficial.
Well, stress always has such a negative connotation to it because we think of stress and we think of bad.
Yeah.
But stress is what forces us to change.
Yeah. There's a really good book on that.
There's a good TED
It's
Talk
called,
on that.
what is it? I have it on my bookshelf here. It is
Upside of
the
Stress.
Upside of Stress. Yeah. So the Upside of Stress, she started off as written by Kelly McGonigal. She has a very good introduction or first chapter. I forget whether it's intro or first chapter. It talks about the misconceptions of stress. So there's this one study that people did, and it showed that you lose like 7 years on your lifespan when you're overly stressed. So everyone's like, oh, stress is bad. We need to eliminate stress. We need to meditate and do all this other stuff or whatever. And meditation's great, don't get me wrong. But people do it as a way to try to avoid stress when stress is inevitable. But you have to choose your stress, just like we choose our problems in life. Mm-hmm. And if that stress is getting better in terms of where it's coming from and your problems are improving, then that's good. But you have to choose your suffering, essentially, right?
Well, I think a lot of it goes into your perception of the stress.
Yeah.
Where we look at working out as that's healthy, but we're applying a stress to our body. Mm-hmm. Or if you apply too much of that stress too frequently, it's going to be detrimental.
A lot of it is tolerance,
Mm-hmm.
right? So similarly, when you're lifting weights, there's no technically correct form. Form is more on a spectrum. It's not right or wrong. It's on a spectrum from more efficient to less efficient. And that spectrum changes depending on your goal. Mm-hmm. If your goal is bodybuilding, then the spectrum of, good or bad form depends, number one, on mechanics, your form, and like your form, meaning like your mechanics as it relates to your anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working in the right planes of motion with the right joint angles? And then number two, are you putting yourself in a position, number one, that's good and effective from a biomechanical standpoint, but also in a position that allows you to connect with that muscle effectively as well? And then you have the strength component, that good or bad form, or the spectrum of from better or worse on form, is dependent on what puts you in the best position to move the most amount of weight possible, right? So in that case, we're looking at biomechanics, not from a muscle activation standpoint, but from a leverage standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we set your body up in a way that utilizes the most muscles possible and allows you to lift the most weight possible?
When I look at this, because every time someone's deadlifting, I mean, my clients will point it out all the time. Like, oh, they're going to hurt their back. Oh, they're rounding a little bit. And I try and explain to them, like, if you watch a strong man compete, when they're lifting up those, 700-pound stone balls, like, they don't have a neutral spine.
Completely rounded.
It's completely rounded, but they've trained their body in that range of motion to withhold stress at that point. So you can't just take like some random person off the streets and say, oh yeah, go deadlift, round your back, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yes, ideally you want as neutral of a spine as possible, but when you're lifting your 1 rep max,
You're probably going to round.
You're probably going to round a little bit.
And I'm glad that you said that, because it brought me back to what I was trying to get back to, because I was kind of losing my train of thought. Choking on your coffee.
Yeah, Jesus.
So like you said, like they have those strong men, they have the tolerance to lift that much weight. They have the tolerance to lift that much weight with a rounded back, whereas a lot of people don't. So your stress is also the same thing. It depends on tolerance, right? If you go from not working and just hanging out, maybe like living with your parents or something, and then all of a sudden you go and you're working 80 hours a week, you have to cover all these different expenses, and that is probably a shell shock in terms of stress. Like you probably want to start working part-time and ease your way up and slowly start paying some, like your rent, and maybe then you're paying your phone bill and then your insurance, but
slowly adding things to the plate.
Exactly. And not everyone has that luxury to do that, but that's just an example of stress tolerance. So in that book by Kelly McGonigal, she uses this study that followed these people for years, right? So they had people who said they were very stressed and people who said they weren't stressed. And the people who said they were very stressed, on average, died 7 years earlier. Here's the part that nobody talks about from this same study. They had, out of the people who said they were highly stressed, about half of them said that they view stress as bad because they were taught stress is bad. The other half said that they see stress as a good thing because it pushes them, and it means that they're trying new things, they're learning new skills, and this stress pushes them to excel. And the people who had a positive outlook on stress and saw stress as something that could be a force multiplier in their career, in their life, whatever, those people ended up living 7 years longer than the group who said they weren't stressed. So by changing your outlook on stress, you can add 14 years to your life. If you're stressed and have a shitty mindset towards stress, you can add 14 years to your life from that.
I mean,
and if
that's
you're highly stressed,
insane.
it's insane. And if you are highly stressed compared to someone that isn't stressed, but you have a better outlook on your stress, on average, you might live 7 years longer. And that's one study. So we take that with a grain of salt, right? But pretty interesting stuff there. And there was another one that really stuck out to me where they did an observational study with maids. So they had like 50 women who were maids, and they were in like, middle-aged, all women. And they stressed the importance of physical activity. So half of them were told that you really need to work out more. No. They told half of them, you need to work out more. This is important. This is going to be good for your health. It's going to be good for weight loss, because all these women wanted to lose weight. And they stressed the importance of that. And they would, they said your cleaning and what you do every day, it's not enough activity to lose weight. So they tried going to the gym and none of them could really stick to it. So there was a lot of inconsistency there. They told they lost like little to no weight. The other group, they did the same thing. They said how important it is to move daily and that you need to make sure that you're highly active. And they said, but with your work, you actually are very active. So you might only need to get to the gym maybe 1 to 2 days a week. And that group lost like 10 pounds over the course of 12 weeks. And most of them didn't even go to the gym, but it was the mindset of knowing, working, just being alive and working because I'm on my feet all day and I'm active the whole day. That's actually a high amount of activity and that's enough to lose weight. And just that mindset shift.
But that probably gave them purpose.
Absolutely.
Because when you feel like, and that's how powerful the mind is.
They probably moved a lot more at work after they realized that. They're like, I should try to find ways to get a little bit more movement and take more steps while I'm at work because this is already a good amount of movement. If
you tell someone that, you're not getting it, that's not enough movement to get the job done, they're probably not going to focus on the movement as much. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Where like just switching your mindset. And I even know that there have been studies that have been done on like ACL repairs where people that go in with a positive mindset to the recovery tend to recover faster than people that are like, fuck, my knee's broken, whatever. I'm never going to get through this. Mm-hmm. So the mind is something, and we should do a high cast and just talk about how crazy the mind is.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that soon. I think another thing I was reading, this is probably like a year ago, was it the same thing with like people who are going through chemo, cancer patients, that the people who have a more positive outlook are generally the ones who make it through. And I can't even imagine being in that situation where you have to like have that mindset and think differently. That can't be easy, but it's pretty amazing when you see how much of a difference that makes in your recovery and living.
Right. You can look into sports training, sports performance.
Yeah.
That imagery of like visualizing, this is what I want to do. Studies will show that does help athletes perform better on the field.
Yeah.
We could go down this rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. It applies to everything.
Absolutely everything. So I know you were in Peoria for the last, you were down there for a day, weren't you?
Yeah, I went down on Wednesday, and let me toss you this in here. We'll leave that in if it's for YouTube.
There we go.
We'll cut it out if it's for just the podcast here. So I went down to Peoria on Tuesday night. I took the train. I got in, and then I stayed there Wednesday.
You took the train down there?
Yeah, I took the Amtrak from Chicago to Bloomington, which is about 45 minutes to an hour away from Peoria, depending on traffic. So...
hold on. Now I'm curious how the hell you got to Peoria.
Oh, my dad picked me up.
Okay.
So I was supposed to get in at 9:11, and we didn't get in until 9:45. There was a delay when we were on the train. So I took Ralphie, because I got him groomed down there. It's like $20 cheaper.
He looks good.
Which is great. Yeah, he looks like a little rat right now. He's so short.
Yeah. What time are we at?
13:50.
Okay.
So I take Ralphie on the train. He's in his little carrier bag. It looks like a little like gym duffel bag. And the lady lets me on. I go in there, sit down. I'll do some work stuff while I'm on the train. I'm getting off, and they tell you to get up like while the train is pulling into the station. Sometimes no one needs to get off, and so they just make a brief stop, and then they keep going. So they want you to get up and kind of go by the doors they're pulling into the station. So I get up, I get my stuff together, I go over there, and the lady who collected tickets, who let me on the train, she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, is that a dog?" And I thought she was going to be like, "Oh, he's so cute, blah, blah, blah," because that's normally the reaction I get. And she goes, I said, "Yeah, it is." She goes, you're not allowed to have dogs in business class."
That's funny.
Because I got the business class because the Wi-Fi is better there. And I go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know." I said, "He's an emotional support animal, if that makes any difference." And she goes, "No, it doesn't."
Jesus.
It has to be a service dog. She goes, has to be a trained service dog with paperwork if you want to bring him on the train. And she said, and he cannot be in business class. So I don't know if that's like emergency or the service animals can't even be on business class. I don't know how that works. I'm pretty sure that's illegal, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I brought him on the train multiple times, but I think I wasn't on business class the last time I took him.
And the train's different than the L, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's also the Amtrak is different than the Metro. So the Metro takes you to the Chicagoland suburbs. The Amtrak can take you to St. Louis, take you to California, like Texas, Florida.
Oh,
anyway,
shit.
yeah.
That's like an actual train.
Yeah. So the one I get off in Bloomington actually ends up going to St. Louis. And anyway,
Good thing you didn't fall asleep.
I know. So she tells me, yeah, you can't have a dog. She goes, if he's an emotional support animal, he has to be in coach and you have to buy him a ticket. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll make sure that I do that next time. And she's being like a little bit snippy at first. But I was like, you know what? She's just doing her job, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And
She doesn't make the rules. She just has to enforce them.
yeah.
Yep.
And then I go, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know. And she goes, well, it's pretty clear on the Amtrak website. And at this point now I'm like, okay, you went from being a little snippy. Now you're being a bitch. So now
Yeah.
I'm going to be a dick. Right. And so she goes, yeah, you need to, or she tells me about the Amtrak website. And I go, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't spend too much time reading the blog on an Amtrak website. I mean, do you guys have a blog on there? Like, I don't know. I don't read it. And she goes, you have to buy him a ticket today. And I go, oh, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, you have to. That's the rules. And I go, well, you let me on.
Right.
And she goes, well, I didn't see him, blah, blah, blah. And I go, I mean, he's in the same bag then that he is now.
Right.
And like during the train, I literally had him sitting on my lap for part of it, and no one else cared. And what's the dude sitting behind me was like, oh, can I pet him? I was like, yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So she tells me I have to get him a ticket. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she goes, well, that's the rules. And I was like,
Fuck
yeah.
your rules.
And I go, yeah, you let me on. And she goes, well, I don't know what to tell you. She's blocking my exit at this point. The door's open. We're there. And she goes, I don't know what to tell you. You have to get a ticket. And I go, well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to get one.
And I'm here.
You didn't tell me till I got here.
Coffee's ready.
I know. It's got one more beep? No, it's just two. So she tells me, can't get off the train, basically. And I go, okay, how about this? I'll buy him a ticket. But before I do that, I'll take your name and your contact information, and I'll take your manager's name and his contact or his or her contact information, and I'll call them, and I'll let them know that you willingly let me on the train with a dog and waited until I got off to harass me into buying a ticket and blocked my exit so that I couldn't get off until I bought the ticket because you screwed up.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I go, how does that sound? And she goes, you know what? Just get off the train. Get him a ticket next time. And I go, all right, have a great night. Yeah. And she walked away, and I felt so good because in my head, I was like, dude, she's going to be venting about me all night. Like, I'm fucking living rent free.
She's going to be the reason, you're going to be the reason she drinks tonight.
Honestly. And you know what? I wouldn't have been a dick about it if she would have been nice. If she would have been nice, I actually probably would have bought a ticket if she would have been nice and respectful about it.
Yep.
But like, it was condescending. I'm like, you're talking down to me because I look younger. Like she was a middle-aged woman. I mean, and maybe it wasn't.
Because your beard's so patchy.
That you sound dumb. You sound dumb.
I mean, maybe fill it in a little bit. You might look 5 years older.
It's very, very full. It's a very good beard. They were going to interview me when I went down there for my dad. So I went down to Peoria because my dad had this thing for his work. So he made their company's Hall of Fame. So they have, a certain, they call it like a standard of excellence. You meet that standard, you get like a free vacation for the year, and you get an All-American is what they call it. If you get 20 of those, you get into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, shit.
And I think like 5% of people in the company probably make the All-American trips every year. So like
Damn.
He's made 21 of them now, I think, and it's 23 years with the company.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah. So they were interviewing him. So they interview him at his work, and he said it took him like hours to set up. They had a whole van just full of camera and video equipment. Like they had to set all of it up like on a dolly that you put all your baggage on at a hotel.
Could you imagine if we had to do some shit like that?
That'd be nuts. So this stuff was filled with camera gear. So they finish interviewing him at his office. They bring all the stuff back to our place at about 3:30, and they set up to interview my mom. It took them an hour and a half to set up. They interviewed my mom for like 10 minutes, and I guess because they were running late, they decided that they weren't going to interview me or my brother or my grandma, which is why I went down there for the interview for my dad.
Yep.
So I moved my clients on Wednesday to other days, which made my other days crazy, which led to me only being able to work out twice this week.
I was going to say, you're looking kind of puffy.
Yeah. Other people, my clients were telling me I look bigger right now. So you say puffy, they say bigger, I'll take bigger. So anyway, they filmed us playing Giant Jenga. We played one game for like 20 minutes. It was actually a really fun game. But anyway.
Who made it fall?
I won, and my grandma made it fall. She went after me. We went oldest to youngest.
Oh, so is that who wins? The person who goes right before the person? Because you made.
I made two of the single. When it goes like one across and one that goes like perpendicular to it. They go. They're perpendicular to each other, right?
Yep. Fucking geometry.
Yeah, and I made two of those by pulling out like one of the other pieces. So there was like one towards the bottom that was 1 and 1, and then another one up towards like the middle that was 1 and 1. Because if I have an opportunity to do that, I will.
You're gonna fuck anyone.
Yeah, because I'm either gonna lose or I'm gonna fucking win. Like I don't care. And so I ended up winning. So that was nice.
But I never knew there was a winner. I thought it was only a loser.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if there's technically a winner in how you play, but that's how we've played. And then you sign your piece that you pulled out that led to you winning.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I signed it. Connor Soft Lips Youngman. That's my birth name. And
you know I will never call you that.
Yeah, no, that's my middle name.
Yeah, whatever.
So anyway.
Is there a dash?
No, it's actually in quotes, and my middle name is actually in quotes. Soft Lips.
Parentheses.
Yeah.
Is that what they're called?
No, parentheses are the little half, like
this
elliptical type looking things. Yeah.
What's this thing? Quotations.
Yeah, quotations. That's what I said. It's in quotes.
Yeah.
So we play that game, and we go to dinner after, and my dad goes, "Hey, I'm sorry that you had to take a 3-hour train ride and move clients around and to get down here, and you didn't even get interviewed." And I was joking around, and I go, "That's all right. I just would have spun every question to talk about the podcast." And he goes, "Yeah?" And I was like, "Yeah, test me." And he goes, "All right." So he had like a list of questions that they sent him that they were going to ask like my brother and I. So they were like, "What inspires you most about your dad?" And so I answer it, and I go, "Well, growing up, my dad always worked really hard. I always noticed that, whenever he was home, if he had time for us, he would spend with us. But other than that, like he was working. And that rubbed off on me a lot. And, I've become I would say a decently successful trainer, which led to me starting my own podcast to help other people all across the world. It's called 5-Year Plan. You can find us on Apple, on Spotify. We'll actually be on YouTube soon if you want to check us out there. And we also have our website at www.5yearplanmedia.com.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah. And I was like, but back to my dad. I mean, yeah, he works hard, so that's inspiring. And so we went around the table when we were at dinner, like just joking around, like going through the questions and like trying to spin them to talk about the podcast.
That's fucking incredible.
It was a good time. And somehow, I don't know how this happens. So whenever my brother Tyler, he's my middle brother, he's 2 years older than me. He like you think I have no filter? I mean, you've met him a couple times.
Yeah.
He has zero filter. So whenever we have dinner with our parents, like somehow it just goes downhill. So somehow we start talking about like how girls like to be choked.
Jesus Christ, is this a family conversation?
Yes, over dinner.
My God.
Don't know how it came up. But
yeah, the Youngmans like to talk about bondage at their family dinners.
Pretty much, dude. And they were like, "Is that like a rape fantasy? Like, I don't understand." And I was like, "No, I mean, you don't like actually choke them. Like you put pressure on like the sides of the neck. It's not, you're not literally choking them." And they're like, "You've done that?" And I was like, "Well, I thought it was weird like the first time. I don't know. It's like, people fucking, some girls like it. I don't know."
I'd say most girls like that.
Like on a scale of like of rated G to X, it's like PG-13.
Yeah. That's definitely not the craziest thing someone has asked me to do, and I'm not getting into that.
No, well, I told my parents, it's like, guys, I've had a girl ask me to spit on her face before. Like that's not even the grossest or weirdest thing.
You saw that Kevin Hart Irresistible?
Yeah.
Where he was watching porn and the guy in porn spit on the girl and she was like, like started rubbing it in, and he tried that to his wife. You heard that? You remember that one? And he spit on his wife, and he was expecting her to like, he's like, "Oh fuck, that's how you make them come. I've been doing it wrong the whole time." So he spits on his wife when they're having sex, and she goes, "Did you just spit on me?" He's like, and I almost lied. I almost told her I didn't just spit on her and it was a leak in the ceiling. And every time I hear spitting on someone like that, if you haven't seen that stand-up, it's called Irresistible on Netflix. Funny. I mean, I've probably watched that 12 to 15 times, and it gets funnier every single time. And there's so many little things that happen in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Like, well, fuck it. What's this one? Where he's spinning his finger. I'm so excited.
Ah, dude, I have to rewatch that.
Oh my God.
Dude, Kevin Hart's great.
Every time someone says so excited, all I can think about, so excited.
Now we got to watch it and fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
Dude, so after that, I don't know how this came up either, but we ended up talking about, like a stepbrother and stepsister porn and how that's
that's
all
a
of a
big
sudden,
thing.
it's a huge category right now. It's the weirdest thing. And
It's always because it's so taboo.
yeah. So I was talking to one of my clients who's
That was
gay,
really Minnesotan of me. Taboo.
yeah, that was just fucking Canadian. You sound Canadian. So one of my clients, he's gay, and he said in that gay porn, it's a lot of like step cousin, or like second cousin, or like stepdad, stepson, like some weird shit. Yeah.
Shit.
So it's not even just like
Heterosexual
hetero porn. It's everything. It's weird how that's like a kink or something now. I don't get it, but there's a lot of memes that are funny. It's like
But that's the thing with
a
porn.
girl stuck in a washer.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, "Oh no, step bro, don't stop."
Yeah, stop. I don't like that.
And it's like obvious she's not stuck in the washer because there's fucking like 3 feet of room around her.
it. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing
So
with porn
funny.
is like you start with something, and think back to like junior high or elementary school when you started watching porn. Like me and my buddy at Lehman, sorry Lehman, I'm throwing you under the bus. Like I'd go over to his house after school and we'd literally just Google boobs or ass or something like that. And we'd just be on Google because my parents blocked all of our porn websites.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know you could do that, but you can block certain websites or certain like searches. So all porn was blocked at my house. So I'd go over to his house and there was this app that you could download porn videos. So I'd go over to his place, download just a ton of porn videos, like download pictures and everything.
Like to your phone?
Yeah, just to my iPod Touch.
That's funny.
Funniest thing in the fucking world. And then, long story short, we'd take that to summer camp, so we'd have porn on our iPods when we were at summer camp. But that's a whole different story. But it just, you start to like, you get desensitized to it, where it's like, okay, just looking at boobs and ass doesn't do it for me anymore. I need a little bit more.
Yeah.
And a little bit more. And next thing you know, you're doing just this super taboo stuff or like super strange, weird, kinky videos.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get desensitized to that and you have to take it one step further until you're doing some fucked up things.
Yeah. I stopped watching porn when I was a sophomore in college. I just like, I would feel gross, dude, after watching it. And I mean, dude, like,
You don't watch porn anymore?
No.
Really?
My brothers made me watch it when I was in 4th grade. And I
watch this.
Yeah, I cried. And I think that, yeah, it was weird. It really fucked up like my mindset, like towards porn, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I'd watch it, I would just feel gross. Like I would literally want to cry. I'm not kidding. All through college. Anytime after I'd watch it. Yeah. It's really weird. And like, don't get me wrong. Like my brothers weren't doing that to like try to fuck me up mentally. But like when I was in 4th grade and
they wanted to be the cool brothers that were showing you all this stuff.
Sixth. One of them was in 6th grade. The other one was a freshman in high school.
When was the first time you jerked off?
That day.
4th grade?
Yeah. They locked me in the bathroom.
Fucking do it.
Yeah. And I literally like cried. I don't even think I could get hard. Like it was really sad.
Jesus.
And like then actually the first time after that, it wasn't until my freshman year in high school.
Damn.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember mine 6th grade.
I got my first blowjob before I ever touched myself.
That's weird.
Yeah. And most of my guy friends started in like 6th, 7th grade.
Yeah. I started 6th grade right after we had our first sex talk in 6th grade. And whatever, you could write like questions on the note cards, obviously anonymous. And then the last question was, why do guys jerk off? And the teacher basically was like, no, honestly, it just feels good. I was like, really? Let me go home and try it. Fucking jerked off like 7 times.
Yeah, sounds about right. No, when I started, it was like a lot every day. I mean, you're a freshman in high school, you're fucking teed up, you're just full of testosterone. But
What's the most times you've done it in a day?
like 5.
9.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's weird though. I would feel so bad and like guilty after, and
so you do have a heart.
it was just
Jesus.
just like weird and like shameful. And then my senior year in high school, I watched this video that talked about like the dark side of the porn industry and how girls get sucked into it when they're like 18, and it's like, it's almost like modern day. I mean, I shouldn't even say modern day because there's still a lot going on nowadays, but it's a form of like sex trafficking.
Oh yeah.
And these girls, like a lot of them don't want to do it, but then they get started and then they're sucked into it.
I mean, it's fucked up.
It is. And then I remember when I was really feeling bad about it again, like my sophomore year in college, I wasn't having sex at that point for some personal reasons. And I was like jacking off a lot and watching a lot of porn. And I was like feeling really, really weird about it and like not in a good place. And I watched that documentary again, and I was like, I can't watch this anymore. And I just stopped.
Damn.
And just haven't really watched it since. Like there's been maybe 1 or 2 times in the last 4 years where I have, and I just feel gross after.
Damn.
Like, what am I doing?
See, and like I'm on the complete opposite side of the spectrum right now because my sex drive is at an all-time low.
Well, it makes sense. You're getting crazy lean.
When you warned me about it, and I was like, that's not going to happen. My sex drive has been so high, like I'm never going to lose this. So I've tried to watch porn in the last couple of weeks, and like nothing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I'm ready for this fucking cut to be over.
I believe it. I also read some stuff, and this is more about guys who are like chronic masturbators, like multiple times a day, every day. And you end up you can get to a point where the only way you could get hard would be if you're actually touching yourself. You have to either be watching porn or touching yourself, or both, where like a girl touching you or like rubbing up on you doesn't do it for you. Like you have to get yourself hard, and then
I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but one of my buddies, he watched porn so much that he literally couldn't get hard when he was with a girl.
Yeah.
So he had to stop watching porn. It took him about a month before, when he was with a girl, he could finally like get it up and everything.
Dude, I have 3 friends who I know off the top of my head who've had that happen, where like, and every time they told me about it, like each guy individually said this happened with multiple girls, that they couldn't get it up and they had to like do it themselves. And the girl ended up like crying after. She was like, is it me? Am I not like hot enough or whatever? And they're like, I mean, that's got to be traumatizing for the girl too.
Oh yeah.
Like that sucks for both parties.
Yeah. No, and it's one of those things because porn is so easy. I mean, you look at Instagram and like the stuff that I see on Instagram now is the shit that me and my buddy would Google back in like 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
And like it's just there. And you can do a quick Google search and 15 different porn websites come. Like porn is so readily available now that a lot of young guys are running into this issue that we've never had to run into before, because it's just, you couldn't find all this weird kinky porn. And now all of a sudden that's the only way some guys can get off now.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right. Should we get into these questions?
Let's do it.
All right.
Question 1. What's the difference between a glute bridge and a hip thrust?
So honestly, I saw these as kind of interchangeable up until about a couple of years ago, where I thought a glute bridge was just from the floor and a hip thrust was from a bench. But it's actually more about the range of motion and execution of the exercise.
It's the intention going into it.
Absolutely. So with a glute bridge, you're going to have probably a third to maybe half the range of motion that you have in a hip thrust. And you can do both of them from a bench or from the floor. The difference is the range of motion, number 1, like we just said, and the execution. So with the range of motion in the hip thrust, you're probably going to bring the bar all the way until the plates hit the floor, and then you'll thrust back up more explosively. Whereas in a glute bridge, you're going to come down a little bit lower, and you're going to focus mostly on controlling the eccentric, the positive motion. In a glute bridge, you're going to focus a little bit more on controlling the eccentric and concentric part of the movement, so the lowering and the thrust, right, or the bridge. So it'll probably be maybe a couple seconds on the way down, and then 1 to 2 seconds on the way up, and you're holding the squeeze for maybe half a second to a second. Versus a hip thrust, you're more focused on being explosive from the bottom position, which generally is starting from a dead stop or starting on the floor. and you might not hold that squeeze at the top. Sometimes you might, other times you don't. But with the hip thrust, you're probably, because it's more explosive in nature, it's going to have a little bit more carryover to your other lifts like a squat or a deadlift, versus a glute bridge will get you a little bit more with, as it relates like building your glutes. So like a glute bridge is probably better for someone who's maybe a physique competitor or just wants to focus on growing their glutes, and it'll still have some carryover to the main lifts, but not as much as a hip thrust. And so like the hip thrust would be one where if you're mostly focused on strength and performance, then that one would be better for that. But you'll still build your glutes up from hip thrusts, but you'll have that more carryover to the other lifts. So I think hip thrusts tend to be better and more performance and strength type programs, and a glute bridge tends to be better for more aesthetics focused programs. And if you have kind of a blend of the two, like how Zach and I like to train, more like power building, then you would probably want to go for a hip thrust, and maybe you have glute bridges on one day and hip thrusts on another. I think if you're gonna pick one in a performance-based program, or even like a hybrid of strength and physique, you'd probably want to go with a hip thrust or both. And if you're more physique focused, if you had to pick one, you'd want to do a glute bridge, but it'd probably be a good idea to do both, because if that's going to help your squat and your deadlift as well, and you're probably doing those if you're more focused on your physique anyway, that has a lot of carryover.
And that's how I use it. So I know I've brought it up on the podcast before, but I would train hockey players right after I graduated college, and we would actually start them off in their warm-up doing glute bridges, kind of getting that full range of motion, gaining that mind-muscle connection, just kind of activating the glutes. And then during their training, it was more of a hip thrust where we were focused strictly on force output. So the glute bridge acted as more of like a warm-up glute activation, and then the hip thrust was where we wanted to see the improvements. So, and I know you mentioned it, and I know you know this too, but even throwing in a hip thrust for aesthetics will be beneficial if it's something you haven't done, especially recently. So we always preach, if you have an aesthetic goal, to focus on performance, and the aesthetics will come. It's more of one of those like fine-tuning things where if you really want to maximize your aesthetics, then yes, focusing on a glute bridge will promote a little bit more of that muscle building signal, as opposed to just like that force output that you get with a hip thrust.
Yeah. And I've also found that a glute bridge can be a great teaching tool before someone gets to a hip thrust. So if someone's newer to training, and I have a client who's just beginning, a glute bridge might be better to kind of get that mind muscle connection to the glutes before they start doing a thrust. Because if you don't have the right setup and you don't know how to put yourself in a position to target your glutes, once you go into hip thrusts, depending on your setup, you could get too much quads, you get too much hamstring. So it kind of helps you find the setup and then find the right kind of like places on your feet where you're trying to drive. So like I like to think of a tripod foot, like your heel, your pinky toe, the pad of your pinky toe, and the pad of your big toe. And you drive through those three spots. And I also kind of think about corkscrewing my feet into the ground. So driving them down and slightly like rotating outward. And the feet aren't actually rotating, but you have that thought going into it. And I found that really helps you connect with the glutes. And when you do that in a glute bridge for a little while, then you can be a lot more, like you're still being explosive in a hip thrust, but you can actually still be explosive, but with your glutes, and really focusing on using your hips your glutes to extend the hips in a hip thrust. So it ends up having more carryover because you can do it correctly.
Well, and that's one thing I noticed with my training and I'm going to use squatting as an example. When I was taught how to squat, there was no controlling the eccentric. It was just you get down into the hole as fast as possible and you explode up, because I was training for football and we needed that explosiveness. But because I didn't learn that control on the way down, it was harder for me to do a body weight squat than it was for me to throw 225 on the bar and have the bar pull me down. That led into a lot of issues down the road when I started focusing more on that mind muscle connection. And I had to take about 5 steps back to be able to take 10 steps forward because I needed to learn that control. So for a beginner, it would be much more advantageous to start with a glute bridge and then work your way into a hip thrust because you're learning that control and you know what you're connecting to as opposed to just going through the motion of it. And that's where the intention comes in because it's monkey see, monkey do. Like I've seen people copy my workouts in the gym, but the intention isn't there. And then they wonder why they don't get the results that they're looking for because there's no intention behind what they're doing. They're just doing it because that's what they think they need to be doing.
Yeah. And they're probably also forgetting to copy that you do a 1 rep max every fucking workout. So
yeah, that's a different story though.
Yeah. How long has it been since you've hit a 1 rep max on a lift?
Probably a month.
Good. It's
At
about fucking
least.
time.
Yeah, no, it's
And before that, it was at least once a week.
at least once a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I was taking, and it was probably more like once a week, but I was taking different movements once a week
Yeah.
to failure. But like right now I'm doing,
But you were going like 1 rep max
yes.
on each lift, like cycling through.
Actually, I
each
take that back. It's been probably about 3 weeks.
week. Okay.
Because I tried a 1 rep max back squat the other day.
After your disc too?
Yeah, I actually tried that
Fucking A,
twice
dude.
after my disc.
You're something else, man.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that right now.
Question 2.
Yep. Question 2. What kind of foods should I be getting when I go to the grocery store?
This is a question that I get multiple times a week.
Yeah.
Because especially with the pandemic, people have been ordering in a lot more. And I think I saw a study that the average American has gained about a pound a month since quarantine started. So if you look at that, we're a year into this. I mean, some people have put on 12, we'll just say 12 pounds. And I mean, you put on 12 pounds of body fat, like you're going to notice that, especially over the course of a year. And I think a lot of people are trying to make that turn to, okay, I need to fix something here. And instead of ordering out, it's, I need to start making my own foods, but I go to the grocery store and I don't necessarily know what to get. So there are 3 things that I really like to focus on with people. And the first thing is your protein sources. So what kind of protein do you like? Do you like chicken? Do you like turkey? Do you like red meat? Do you like pork? Like, figure out what you like to eat.
Tofu. Or tempeh if you're vegetarian,
vegan. But find a protein source that you like, that your body agrees with. Get a bunch of that. Next thing, fruits and vegetables. That's one thing that I think a lot of people don't get, especially with fruits because of the shelf life. I mean, if they're in the fridge for a week, typically they go bad. But making sure you're getting fruits and vegetables. So I like to get a bunch of fruits and also vegetables that are going to complement the protein source. So if I'm getting, like, one of my big things is I like to do steak and Brussels sprouts, or steak and asparagus, steak and broccoli, something that I know that I'm going to eat if I have it. So again, you got to find the fruits and vegetables that you know you're going to eat if they're readily available in your fridge. And then also carb sources, because the fitness industry has done a very good job at demonizing carbs. And it was fat about 20 years ago. And then people got fatter and now it's, carbs are the enemy. But finding high quality carb sources, so something like oatmeal, quinoa, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice. I mean, something, again, easy to make where
like
it's
oatmeal.
Oatmeal is my biggest thing right now.
You know, the most common carb source out of all pro natural bodybuilders is cereal.
Really?
That's one that a lot of people
Does
don't
oatmeal
talk
get
about.
thrown into cereal?
That's a good question. I don't know. So I think with cereal, the one problem that a lot of people have is a lot of cereals are high in added sugars and a lot of other just bullshit thrown in. But some of them actually have more micronutrients than like granola. Like, a lot of people go to granola as a healthy substitute for cereal. And I like granola. I have granola in my Greek yogurt or things like that. But I think cereal is great too. I'll even have, if I'm bulking, I'll have, like a bagel in there too with my breakfast. So maybe I'll swap out for a carb source. Instead of doing like hash browns with eggs and turkey sausage, I'll make like a breakfast sandwich on a bagel. and I'll have like eggs and turkey sausage and maybe some low fat cheese in there or something like that. But yeah, I think we need to make sure that people are getting enough carbohydrates in. If their goal is body composition and performance, you need carbs. I shouldn't say you need carbs, but unless you're keto or you're like a really low carb because carbs make you feel like
gluten
shit.
intolerant.
Yeah, like you definitely need to make sure that you're getting a good amount of carbs because that's what's going to fuel your performance.
But it's also like you don't need to cut things out. And one of the things one of my buddies was like, but I love pasta. I'm like, there are healthier alternatives than just getting pasta.
Chickpea pasta is
Chickpea
great.
pasta
You don't
is
even
great.
You don't even taste the difference, honestly.
No,
If you have some sauce on there, some
Right.
marinara sauce,
throw some
Parmesan
meat,
cheese,
throw some meat in the sauce
absolutely.
as well. I would out in LA, I'd go to Trader Joe's and get like black bean pasta, lentil pasta, chickpea pasta. I mean, there's a ton of, and they're higher in protein.
Yep.
Whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, Ezekiel bread. I mean, there's so many, and that's the thing. We categorize foods as good or bad. When again, you got to look at it as a spectrum. Where if you really like bread or you really like pasta, there are healthier alternatives within that category to still allow you to keep that stuff in your diet, but you're making a healthier choice than just getting white bread.
Yep, absolutely. So we got protein, fruits and veggies, carbs. I think one of the other things would be depending on where your fat intake is at, it might make sense to look into, getting some fat sources into your diet as well when you're going grocery shopping. So, things I like to get that can help me get in more fats would be, rather than doing Greek yogurt, maybe you do like a full fat yogurt versus just Greek yogurt. You could do avocado. That's another one that's really easy to throw into damn near every meal.
Yep.
Even, olive oil, canola oil, cook with those. And if you
Flax seeds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Seeds, nuts, for sure. I actually have a whole grocery shopping list in my book, 30 Days to Totally Fuckable. So if you want a full grocery list to not have to think about anything, then go download that. It's on my Instagram. You go to the link in my bio. It's right there. And, we'll link it in the show notes below too. So if you want a full grocery list plus a 4-week program and a nutrition guide, then definitely go download that free program. But I want to know what your go-to protein sources are when you go.
For me, I like boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I mean, that's been one of my biggest things recently.
Why that over chicken breast for you?
Just the fat, the fattiness, but also steak. Like I'll have steak 5 nights a week at least. So typically, I'll just run you through a week. Like Sunday, Friday, and then one other day in the week, me and my roommate, we get a full rotisserie chicken. Again, you got to watch out for the amount of calories that you're eating, but chicken is our main source of protein. And then we'll always have Brussels sprouts, and we throw bacon in the Brussels sprouts because it's fucking incredible.
Amazing.
But we'll do carrots with cinnamon on it in the air fryer, throw some broccoli in the air fryer, asparagus. I mean, we always make sure we're getting a good amount of vegetables with our meals as well.
Yeah.
But again, I love steak. I have a steak seasoning that absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's the Gibson stuff.
Yep.
And doing that.
So most like turkey, chicken, steak, chicken. Do you do ground turkey sometimes, or are you more of a beef guy?
I'm more of a beef guy, but another way to get more protein in is I'll do oatmeal with a scoop of protein powder in there, mix some water in there, and it's like so if you do if you do 1 cup of oats, that's 300 calories right there. 1 scoop of protein powder with the gold standard whey, it's 120 calories. So for 420 calories, you've got yourself a great pre and or post workout meal right there.
And you could throw in almond milk or water with that. If you really need to keep the calories lower, almond milk if you want it to taste a little better and you have some calories to play with. Yeah.
Another good one is just making smoothies. Like I always would throw a bunch of frozen fruits in my smoothies. Maybe throw some flaxseed, chia seeds in there as well. Throw some spinach in there. That way, it's finding ways to make sure I'm getting enough fruits and vegetables into my diet.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a big chicken guy for sure. Ground turkey is one of my favorites, and I like beef, Turkey's just easier in terms of like hitting your protein target.
Less fatty.
Yep. Breakfast, I love egg whites and whole eggs too. Just depends where I'm at with my macros and everything. And then Greek yogurt is another one that's huge for me. And then sometimes I'll do like turkey sausage with breakfast. And then lunch and dinner tend to be like chicken, turkey, or steak. And then sometimes beef, depending on how much red meat I'm getting in at the time.
I always find it easier when I go to the grocery store with an idea of what meals I want to make. So if I know like, okay, this is what I'm going to eat, this is what I'm going to get, because it doesn't make sense to get a bunch of stuff if you're not going to eat it.
Yeah.
So going to the grocery store with a plan of like, okay, here's what my week looks like. Here's how many meals I'm going to need to make. Going into the grocery store with a plan of like, okay, this is what my week's going to look like. This is how many meals I'm going to need to make. I'm going to get the foods so I can make these certain meals, as opposed to just getting a bunch of stuff and then figuring it out later. And that comes with practice. Like you go in and you're like, all right, this is what I want to make for dinner. Let me get these ingredients, as opposed to just throwing everything at the kitchen sink, seeing what sticks. Because then a lot of times the food ends up, you don't cook it or it goes bad or something like that.
Yep.
Question 3. How can I convince my parents to stop doing keto? This is their 4th time doing it because it's the only diet that works for them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to include those air quotes. They put in quotes, it's the only diet that works for them. So I'm assuming the person that asked this, you probably already know that it doesn't really work for them because you put that in quotes, because if it worked for them, they wouldn't be doing it for their 4th time. They would just still be doing it. I think the thing is, nutrition's very emotionally charged. It's like religion and politics now, where people over-identify with how they eat. You see literally people put it in their Instagram bio if they're like keto or vegan, whatever. You see it a lot on Twitter too.
Carnivore.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If they like it, then I wouldn't say anything. But if they really liked it, they probably wouldn't have to do it and then get off it, and then do it and get off it. And they're at a place where they're convinced that this is all that works for them. So they've probably tried tracking their calories. But when you don't do it with a coach, and the first time you're doing it is just on your own, it's really fucking hard. And they probably do what most people do. You get a calorie calculator on the internet. And I have an article that tells you, how to calculate your calories, but it's still a crapshoot. It's a guess. Any of those estimates are a guess. And they probably did that, and they ate in what they thought was a calorie deficit, and it wasn't actually a calorie deficit. On top of that, they're probably not very accurate with how they're tracking, and they're probably not tracking certain foods they eat. Like most people, we're notorious for overeating when we're tracking. People who try to lose weight generally underestimate how much you're eating. People who are trying to gain weight tend to overestimate how much they're actually eating. So,
I've noticed this personally.
Absolutely.
Like before I started my cut, like I started the cut, but then I seriously started the cut. I would track my calories during the day, but I wouldn't track the Oreos that I ate.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of people don't track those sneaky calories or the late night calories or whatever the case. So they probably think that keto is the only diet that works for them, but they probably haven't really tried other diets as strictly as they have with keto, because with tracking calories and people know that, nothing's off limits, it's good to have that flexibility, but then they lack structure. And what these other, fad diets do is they provide you with structure. So they know, okay, I can't have carbs. It's black and white, right? With tracking calories, it's not black and white. And it's harder. Moderation is hard. But when you can slowly, get moderation into your diet, it's unbelievably rewarding, right? You can actually enjoy going out with friends, enjoying a beer here and there, having a drink. And those things are a lot harder when you're on a very strict diet. But it can be done. It just takes building long-term habits that's difficult, man. When I'm with clients, we're working on one habit for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And once we get that one habit and it's set, we've done a really good job for 2 weeks, we might add in another.
Right.
We might wait another 2 weeks. It really depends. But
that's where I see the benefit in in running these diets is because it gives you that structure and you can see what works for you and what doesn't.
Yep.
And then when you know, quote unquote, go off of it, you can take some of the structure that worked for you and then eliminate what didn't work for you and find something else that will work.
And I think having those conversations with them is what can be helpful. Not telling them, hey, you need to stop doing keto. This isn't good, blah, blah, blah. You can tell them like, hey, keto isn't bad. It's worked well for you guys. That's good. I'm glad that it's worked for you and you've done it. But maybe what you could do is run a slightly different version of keto, right? So you see, like you said, what works for you. But you could explain that one of the potential problems with a ketogenic diet is you're either on it or you're off it. It's black and white, where you could encourage them to find a diet that can be more like a thermostat rather than a light switch, and tell them that, hey, you can be, 60% on point or 70 or 80%. You don't have to be 100 or 0, because most people, when they get off keto, they just go on a bender because they've been so restricted for so long that all of a sudden they're eating everything in sight, or they're eating whatever they want. They're going to, shitty restaurants. They get a donut on their way to work, whatever the case. And I think when you kind of walk them through that logic, that it could be, just dial it back a little bit rather than going way off the rails. And then when you're getting more on point, then cool, you can turn that thermostat up and really dial your nutrition in. But the ultimate thing that you can do is lead by example. Because if your parents can see you achieving your body composition goals while including the foods you love, and they'd be like, hey, how'd you go out over the weekend and maintain your progress? How'd you not go way off? And you can explain it to them. But until they see you doing it, they're not going to believe that it works. And even then, they're still going to be resistant towards it, because most people that do keto have this suspicion that, oh, well, I tried tracking calories and it didn't work, so I'm insulin resistant.
Yeah, well,
and they probably aren't.
And I see that more on the flip side of like parents trying to get their kids to eat healthier, where that's where the leading by example comes into play, because especially it depends who's getting the groceries. Like if you're complaining about the kinds of foods that you have in the house or don't have, but you're not the one going and getting groceries, like either one, take the initiative to get the groceries, or two, if you're a parent and you're trying to get your kid to eat healthier, lead by example. If you don't want them eating Cheetos, don't have Cheetos in the house. Especially don't eat Cheetos in front of them. Because if you're telling them they can't eat Cheetos, but after dinner you're snacking on a box or a bag of Cheetos, was it a bag?
Bag, box.
I don't think they come in boxes.
No, I don't think they do actually.
Cheez-Its come in boxes.
Cheez-Its do. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. But if your kid sees you doing that, but all of a sudden you're telling them they can't do that, that's going to lead to them like, well, fuck, if they're doing it, they're probably not going to say fuck.
Yeah.
But if they're doing it, then I'm going to do it too. And leading by example has so much power behind it than just telling someone to do something. Because if you are the one that's doing it as well, people are much more likely to follow that.
Yeah. And I think whenever you're looking at persuasion and trying to persuade someone to do something, you have to look at like what makes something persuasive, right? So if you come to them right out the gate to have this conversation and say keto sucks because XYZ and blah, 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 you have to understand they think keto is the best diet because that's the only one that's helped them see progress, right? So you have to enter the conversation through their door and say something along the lines of like, hey, keto is actually a very valid nutrition approach. There actually, can be tons of benefits to it. And I'm glad that it's worked really well for you guys. But because you've been on and off for a while, maybe there's a different approach that works. So you have to kind of enter, when I say enter through their door, you have to enter that conversation and find some common ground. Think about any time you've had a disagreement with someone. If they come right out the gate saying, you're wrong because X, Y, Z, it doesn't matter the facts that they show you. They could show you research. They could show you whatever. You don't care what they have to say now because they're an asshole, right? And so you have to enter the conversation through their door and understanding you have to meet them where they're currently at. And then you have to lay out some, practical steps and probably some research and some facts to show them that there are other ways to do it as well that don't have to be as restrictive. So if your parents, when they're on keto, if they don't like it and they're complaining about it and all this stuff, you tell them how effective it can be, but also that this is good news that there's other ways of doing it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying there are also other ways to do it. Doesn't make it better or worse. They're just different. And it might be better for you, but worse for me. But you need to find what's best for you. And you can point them in the direction of some really good resources for nutrition, whether you bring them to our podcast or a different fitness podcast, send them articles or research or, any fitness content creator online that, gives really high quality information. You point them in those directions and really remind them what you're doing isn't wrong, but there are other ways that you could do it that might be more enjoyable for you. Because if it was really enjoyable for you to be on this diet, you wouldn't be on and off it all the time. You could kind of dial it back and dial it in. But ultimately, it's going to come down to leading by example. Thank you for listening to this episode of 5-Year Plan. If you like what we're doing here on the show, we ask that you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Some of you guys listen from some weird-ass apps.
Weird-ass apps.
We don't know what they are. Never heard of them. But anyway, if you want any of your future questions answered on the podcast, you can write into us at our Instagram at 5-Year Plan Media, or you can write into us at our website at www.5yearplanmedia.com. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Youngman_.
And you can find me on Instagram at Z_Condon.
If you're watching this on YouTube, then please like and subscribe this video. It helps us with, getting organic reach, other people finding us. And remember, there is a fee to the show. And the fee is that if you got anything of value out of this episode, you laughed a little bit, you learned something new, then we ask that you share it to your social media, tag us. We love to see that. We'll share it on our story because we're super fucking famous now. That's a joke. But,
not really, but kind of.
We'll share it. We love to see that. It makes us so happy, realizes that, what we're doing is making a difference. So it means the world to us when you do share that. But we know that you're, even if you're not sharing it on social media, we know you're sharing it with family, with friends, because the show is slowly but surely growing. And it's grown to the point where we now have a media team who is helping us get on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for sharing our show. It means the world to us. And hopefully, we've done as much for you as you guys have for us. Thank you for watching this episode of 5-Year Plan. If you like what we're doing here on the show, be sure to like and subscribe.
If you want one of your questions answered on a future podcast, you can write into our website at www.5yearplanmedia.com, or you can write into our Instagram page at 5-Year Plan Media.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Youngman_.
You can find me on Instagram at Z_Condon.
See ya.
Peace.